Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. I'm Nick, the Director of Events here for Mysterious Galaxy. Tonight, I am joined by two wonderful authors. First, we have Gigi Pandian, who is a USA Today bestselling and award-winning mystery author, breast cancer survivor, and accidental almost vegan. She's been awarded the Agatha, Anthony, Lefty, and Derringer Awards and is a co-founder of Crime Writers of Color. Hi, Gigi.
Hey, thanks so much for having me tonight.
Of course.
Hi, Tiffany.
And then joined is Ellen Byron, an award-winning playwright, a TV writer of comedies like Wings, Just Shoot Me, and Fairly Odd Parents, my personal favorite when I was growing up. She has written over 200 articles for national magazines, and she blogs with Chicks on the Case. And I am so happy to say that we hosted her before for her Cajun Country Mystery Series and hope to have her again for even more books. But tonight, we are here for Under Lock and Skeleton Key, Gigi's latest novel. Yay!
Hey. So, Gigi, Nick, should we launch into this?
I just want to do a quick reminder for everyone.
Yes.
If they haven't yet bought the book, you can click below and head to our website there where you can order your own copy of Under Lock and Skeleton Key. Gigi is going to be wise and wonderful in about a week or so. Visit the store to do some signing and personalizing of any books. So if you want to order one with personalization, now's the time to do it. If you have any questions you want to submit for the second half of the event, go ahead below and hit the Ask a Question button, and your questions will be submitted and answered later on. All right, now I'll hop out and I'll let Ellen take it away. All right, I'll see y'all later.
Thanks, Nick.
Well, Gigi, why don't you give us give us a little synopsis about the book, which is wonderful, by the way. It was such a delight to read.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is so exciting. Under Lock and Skeleton Key is this book. I'm so excited that it came together. So it is the first secret staircase mystery. It is a locked room mystery. And Secret Staircase Construction is no ordinary home renovation company. They build magic into people's homes through things like sliding bookcases, secret stairways, hidden gardens, through things like grandfather clocks that are more than they seem. And Tempest Raj grew up in this family business, and she wanted to strike out on her own. So she has become a successful stage illusionist. But her show in Las Vegas is sabotaged and her career is ruined. So at the start of the book, she's moved home to her childhood bedroom, which is not the most fun feeling, even when you live in such a fun family home. And trouble follows her home on her first day working for her dad's secret staircase construction business. Her stage double, who she's convinced is the one who sabotaged her career, is found dead inside a wall that has been sealed for a whole century. So it is up to Tempest to solve this seemingly impossible crime and figure out if the Raj family curse has really come for her or if there's a rational explanation for what is going on.
Cool. Now, I know, because we're friends, and I'm going to claim credit. I came up with the title.
You did. Ellen is the best. She titles things. I love coming up with like intricate plots and characters, and I cannot write a title to save my life.
Well, sometimes I'm lucky and sometimes I'm terrible. But when I worked on Just Shoot Me, they would send me off to do the stupid interstitials. But I know this series has an interesting history in your personal life. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So Tempest Raj is a character who has been rattling around in my head for so many years. And I initially wrote a short story with her many years ago. And she was just a fun character. And she was mentioned in passing in my Jaya Jones Treasure Hunt mysteries. Since she's a stage magician, she's one of Sanjay, the Hindi Houdini's friends. And so she was mentioned just in little, bits and pieces. And she was fun. But several years ago now, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had a whole year of cancer treatments ahead of me. And one of the things that got me through that year was my wonderful writers group. And so I made a promise to myself and my writers group that once I got through that year of cancer treatments and got healthy again, I was going to take us all on a writing retreat to Edinburgh, Scotland, where I have a personal connection to. And so I said I was going to rent out a whole flat, and then whoever could get there, I'm going to pay for this big flat, and we're going to have a writing retreat. And so I ended up doing that for my 40th birthday. And I didn't have any plan about what I would be working on, but I had this character Tempest who was really calling to me. So I started working on the book that became Under Lock and Skeleton Key at that 40th birthday post-cancer writing retreat. And it was so much fun. And we did have rules, because even though it was a fun thing to do with writers that I was friends with, we had to get some work done, because the whole point was to do a writing retreat. So the rule was we had to write for the first half of the day. And then if we wrote all morning, then we could go play in the city afterwards. And so we did that. And so it was a little over a week. We would get all these words done on the page, and we could brainstorm too. And then we could go explore Edinburgh and surrounding areas. And so I started writing this book with this, the first line that really came to me, which has stayed in the book, is what happens when a carpenter and a stage magician fall in love. They form a business to build magic into people's homes. But I didn't yet know how to make the story work, and there was too many pieces. And so it took me many years in between other projects until it finally came together. But that was really the start of being able to do it.
Now, didn't you write it as a thriller first?
Yes. Okay. I was babbling too long. So there's so much of this story that I don't want to like talk everyone's ear off. But yes. So after that writing retreat, there were so many big ideas that I was trying to get into the book. I thought, oh, maybe this is a thriller. I've never written a thriller before. I write cozy mysteries. I love cozy mysteries. I love reading thrillers too, but I've never tried to write one. So I tried writing this as a thriller, and it enabled me to play with things in a way that I hadn't before in my books. But at the same time, it wasn't my natural voice. And so it felt really forced, and it wasn't working. And even after I had finished a full draft, I actually sent it to my agent for feedback on. And she was very gracious and wonderful, but pointed out how much work it needed. And she was so right. And I then realized it wasn't work it needed. It needed a complete rewrite, and it needed to be in my lighthearted voice that is, I think of the book as like a gothic cozy mystery. So not the same type of cozy exactly that I've done before, but in that whole lighthearted mystery world.
Now, where did the whole idea for like this is so cool, like, grandfather clock, and you go and you enter and you go in and you come out like Narnia in another world. Is that something that existed in real world? Did you see that? What inspired that?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was not a kid who played with dolls ever. If I ever got them as gifts, they like went unused. But what I did do is I built things out of blocks everywhere around the house. I'm an only child, and my parents were very accommodating. I don't know how they put up with all of these building blocks like all over the house. And then I wanted to be an architect like through when I was like 15, I think. And so I always loved, just building things. And then of course, like loving things like Nancy Drew and as a kid, and all just the idea of all of the mystery that's in there. And so I loved the idea also because since I love stage magic, that bringing that element, because it feels really connected to that as well. I love that I could bring it all together like that.
Now, do you do magic? Where did this interest in magic come from?
So my interest in magic actually comes from mystery fiction as opposed to stage performers. And it grew bigger and into now I love so many magicians. And I'm very excited that when I come to Southern California, I'm going to visit the Magic Castle. Which
I was going to ask. I
I
was about to say that.
Yes,
it's super cool.
Yeah. No, I love visiting the Magic Castle. So I think it's going to work out to do that. Fingers crossed. But I love classic mystery fiction, mysteries from the golden age of detective fiction, like the 1920s and 30s, when so many mystery writers were writing puzzle plot mysteries and locked room impossible crime mysteries too, where there really is so much misdirection in those puzzle plots. And one of the really cool things from those mysteries is there were lots of stage magician characters who were the amateur sleuths in those books, because there really is so much of a connection between the misdirection that we get to write into mystery novels and that stage magicians do, like the sleight of hand. Like there's so many similar techniques that in writing to have a satisfying resolution, but that we set up using misdirection. And so I loved seeing magician characters in classic mystery fiction. And so I wrote a side character in my Jaya Jones mystery, Sanjay, who is the Hindi Houdini. I write lots of short stories with him because he solves impossible crime mysteries, and that was such fun. So that's where that love came from. And then I did get much more into stage magic from there, but it came from books first.
Well, okay, so I have to ask, speaking of magic and sleight of hand, you're kind of really owning the locked room mystery space. That's kind of, can you talk a little about a couple of things? Like, one, why that's a particular passion for you, and then how do you plot a locked room mystery? Because it's fascinating. I mean, I'd love to do one, but it's a little intimidating.
Yeah. So for me, locked room mysteries are the ultimate puzzle, because not only is it, are you trying to figure out who done it, but really how it was even rationally possible for the crime to have been committed. Because it looks like the only thing that could have happened is that there's a supernatural explanation, because it looks truly impossible. And the thing that really drew me to that, beyond, because I love puzzle plot mysteries of all kinds, but John Dixon Carr, who is the master of the locked room mystery, the reason that his books and stories were so compelling, and I'm convinced that he remains so well read, people are still reading him today, is because of his style of writing those. It's not just a cerebral puzzle, but it really is that he overlaid this whole gothic, spooky atmosphere in the books that really made you feel like you were entering a ghost story here. And that's the only possible explanation. Yet there is a completely rational explanation at the end. And I'm not someone who, like, Ellen, I don't know if you do this, that when you read mysteries, do you try to solve the mystery, or do you just go along for the ride?
I go along for the ride, and I actually don't want to solve. There are people who really revel in solving it. To me, I'm disappointed if I just solved it. I like that. Oh, I never saw that coming.
Yeah, but that's the best. I'm with you. Like, I don't actually try to solve it, but when the solution is revealed, I want it to be something that I'm like, oh, I should have seen that.
Yeah, exactly.
It was all there,
It's like, oh, of course. Like, it didn't come out of left field. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love trying to be able to create that. And in order to plot that, there are, I do outline extensively, but at the same time, I really do throw out my outline as soon as my characters get going, because you're so much better at outlining than me. I know this. You stick to your outline, and I do not. But the mystery. So interestingly, though, in my outlining, the mystery solution is generally the same, like how the puzzle works, like that. But I'm always wrong about who did it. And so, like, how, so the characters and their interactions and motivations and things, I let the characters tell me really who did it. But the puzzle that the characters are solving is usually at least pretty close to what my outline had in store.
Interesting. You're inspiring me to try one. I have to figure it out. So
and I'm so envious of you, though, that you get to stick to your outline, though, because
I mean, there's I discover things as I'm writing, and characters will suddenly appear that weren't there before, and but the bones of it pretty much stay the same. But and I do have like whole scenes and stuff, so it makes it go a little faster. But that's from my TV background. But this isn't about me; it's about you. So you mentioned being an only child. So can you tell us a little about how your past kind of influences your writing? You traveled a lot with your parents. How did that influence you in Tempest? And how is her backstory similar to yours and different? And that kind of thing.
Yeah. So my dad is from South India, and he came to the United States for graduate school. And he met my mom when they were studying cultural anthropology in graduate school. And after they got married and got jobs as professors, they did lots of research travels that, because I was an only child, I was able to, they just took me along with them.
By the way,
When
where
they
were they professors? I'm just curious.
In Southern California, which is why I grew up down there. So yeah, and so, but we would, on vacations and, you know, like the academic calendar on summers and things, I would get to go with them to their academic conferences and their different research trips. And so I really had to entertain myself a lot when I was in like foreign countries, and sometimes there would be kids and sometimes it would just be me entertaining myself. And so I would just make up stories then. And I loved reading mysteries from a young age too. But I was also perfectly contented to, to make up my own fun stories as well. And when I started writing too, I didn't think about this as a conscious choice, but because I am from that multicultural background, I just naturally wrote characters who had a similar background from me, because that was just the way that, you know, I felt like these characters should be in books, and I know this from my experience, so I'm going to create these characters. And so I just wrote that into my fiction without thinking about what I was doing at the time. It's one of those things that you just, I mean, so much of my writing career, I have my subconscious to thank, because none of the things that I have done are really conscious choices. I'm just following what feels natural and what I love to do. And that's one of the really exciting things, like why I love this book so much, because locked room mysteries, I feel like, really fell out of fashion after the golden age of detective fiction. And they were actually popular in Japan after that. And I'm so thrilled that so many of those Japanese mysteries are now being translated into English, so I can read them, which is great. But in the English language mystery world, they really weren't popular for a long time. But I've been a total locked room mystery nerd since I started writing, and I stuck with it, even though, you know, it wasn't, you know, people weren't really like looking for that then, but I love it. And as I've become a stronger writer, so I'm so happy that that I found such a great home at Minotaur Books for my locked room mystery in this
Oh, that's
series.
fantastic. So now, I see the South Asian influence in your books. Now, what about the Scottish? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so my mom, she is not Scottish, just has Scottish ancestry, but that is her cultural anthropology research. She did a lot of field work with Scottish crofters.
Oh,
And the crofting community who lived off the land, like in the Highlands, and it was, you know, a community that was really becoming smaller and smaller. So she did lots of field research and wrote a book that was used in lots of classrooms and things for a long time. And so she would do lots of research there. And so that was actually the first research trip that I spent the whole summer with her, when she was doing some more book research in the Highlands of Scotland when I
oh,
was 10. And so that's when I was younger than that, they would take me with them to conferences in the United States. But when I was 10 was when I got to start traveling abroad with them on different research trips. And then, you know, like the following year, visiting family in India and things like that. But yeah, so it was the perfect age to really be able to have, like, I could do a few things on my own and really have, and it's such like a magical place, especially like in the Highlands. Like I would be climbing like ruins and things like off, and you know, this was the 80s too, so I had a lot more freedom, you know,
yeah.
and so I could just go run off, and like all of these stone walls could have fallen on me, but I'm okay.
I used to, when
So
we had family vacations, I have two brothers, and it was always a madhouse. And I'd get sick and they'd leave me, and they go off, and I'd wander around a motel by myself and have a wonderful day. So,
yeah.
but nowadays, my daughter, I literally had her on a leash when she was little. But so let me ask you, how do you research the magic tricks that are in your book?
So the I'm trying to think how to answer that, because again, it's one of those things that I just, just like how that I'm sure, like we read so many mysteries that we just, get so much of that. But I watch so much magic now because I love it, that trying to think about how I would do it. And one thing too, that I really did try to walk the fine line between not revealing a magician's secrets, but also revealing some twists for how I would do things. And so that's one of the really cool things about stage magic that I think that lots of people don't know, and is a really cool trick that magicians can play on people, is that if you see a trick done a certain way, but you think, oh, I figured out how that was done, do that again, magician, they will do it a different way. Because there are different ways to achieve the same effect. And so you just have to figure out what is the proper way of doing misdirection. And it's also the same in mystery fiction. A cool story I love is that John Dixon Carr and Clayton Rawson were both writers in the golden age of detective fiction, and they were friends. And so John Dixon Carr is most known for his character, Dr. Fell, who, I won't go off on a tangent on that. And Clayton Rawson wrote a character, Merlini, who was a stage magician who was an amateur sleuth. So since they were friends, they would sometimes challenge each other. Like they would set up certain impossible situations and challenge each other to solve it in a story or a book. And they would do it.
That's so cool.
And so there are different ways that you can solve the same problem, but just with a different mechanism.
Is there anyone right now writing like the way you do that you could issue that challenge to? Have you found your compatriot in Locked Room?
I do have several. I'm so happy that I have several Locked Room mystery writing friends now, but we have not actually challenged each other to do this. So I think that is a great idea, and we should do this.
Awesome. Now talk a little about Sanjay, because he's wanders through many of your books and stories.
Yeah, so Sanjay first appeared in my first Jaya Jones novel, Artifact. And he's Jaya's best friend, who she thinks of as a brother. And he is just such a fun sidekick character in those books. He started off very small, and he has such a larger than life personality that he just got a little bit of bigger role in each book. And he's just so fun. And when he kept wanting to take over, that's when I'm like, you need something else of your own. So that's when I started writing Locked Room mystery short stories with Sanjay as he's been in the majority of my Locked Room mystery short stories. And then since Tempest in Under Lock and Skeleton Key, she's in that whole, it's the same universe, since she's one of his stage magician friends. I really do feel like having a woman as the main character is what really resonates with me. When I tried to write this book as a thriller and I wrote multiple POVs with different characters, it was really Tempest who really came to life as the main character. But I love Sanjay so much that he needed to come over here too, especially since, they were the original friends from the Jaya series. So I get to bring it full circle now. And I have so much fun. I won't spoil it, but a few chapters in, there's a scene, the first scene that Tempest is with Sanjay in the book, that was a lot of fun to write. And that was one of the first things that my editor told me was like one of her favorite scenes in the book, because they really come to life together.
That's great. Now what is, talk a little about your writing style. I mean, what works for you? What do you love to write? What's your favorite part of it? What's your least favorite?
Okay. My favorite part is something that is not the actual writing, but connecting with other writer kindred spirits like you, because having that writing community and really finding such wonderful friendships with people who get like what we love to do, because it is such a frustrating and isolating experience sometimes, but also there's so much joy that comes with it. But there is also the frustration with there's certain things that are really hard work, but being able to have the community of writers it's just so wonderful. But in terms of the actual work of the writing, the way that I fill paper notebooks before I ever turn to the computer, So that's my one big thing. And then the second biggest thing that I'll say is that the world is so distracting, like especially now, that I get my writing done first thing in the morning before I go online. And I even have I have a couple tricks to do that. I have a program called Focus on my computer that I can use that will turn off the internet for any programs that are distracting, so I can like turn off all browsers. Because if you think, oh, I just need to look up the answer to one thing online, it'll only be 30 seconds. I promise you it will be 30 minutes later before you leave that website or stop scrolling or anything like that. And then I'll also sometimes give my husband my cell phone if I'm really having trouble focusing. I won't even put it in the other room, but I'll actually hand it to him. And then he'll be able, like, if there's an emergency and like the phone is ringing and texts are lighting up, like he can come and get me. Right. But otherwise I am totally offline so that I can actually focus.
Is there something you enjoy writing when in the process more like, I really, one of the things that I really gravitated towards in writing prose as opposed to dialogue, and was setting. It was so much fun to do that. One thing I hate writing is clothes. I hate describing what people wear. For some reason, I actually, in one book, she changed from one pair of jeans into another, and I don't even wear jeans. She changed from one pair into another pair of jeans. So is there anything that you particularly gravitate towards too?
I love dialogue because I love I love fun characters so much. And since I write on the cozy, lighthearted side of mystery, I love books where I want to be friends with the characters. And that's, Ellen, one of the things that I love about your books too, is you feel like you want to be friends with them and they're fun and funny and like, I'd like to hang out with them. And, and so I want to do that too. And so when I have these characters who I feel like I'm hanging out with them in my head. And so the dialogue is just really fun because I'm just hearing them talk and sometimes I'm really surprised by things that they will say. And that's the best, when they totally surprise you and say things that you didn't see coming.
Do you ever get sad that they're not real?
Oh, totally. And but not with mine, because with mine, I'm more aware of that because I'm creating things. I am sad that they're not real, but it's especially in my favorite books that I love to read. I'm sad that those characters aren't real because I want to hang out with them.
Yeah. I really wish Pelican was real. I actually, Pelican was based on a real place that didn't live up to the fictional one I created. So what do you hope readers will take away from the book, from Under Lock and Skeleton Key? What would you like them?
I would like readers to have fun with a lighthearted, escapist puzzle plot mystery where they are having fun hanging out with Tempest and her friends and family and lots of good food. There are recipes in the book, and there's so much food written into the book because Tempest's grandfather, after retiring from being a medical doctor for many decades, is now loves cooking. So he's become the chef for Secret Staircase Construction. So one of the perks for working for the company is that he cooks home cooked lunches that he'll deliver to the crew all around the Bay Area, wherever they are. So they don't have to worry about lunch. He'll deliver their little lunch boxes of fresh cooked fusion cuisine, a mashup of Indian food, Scottish food, and California cuisine.
Very good. Now, if you could hire Secret Staircase to build one thing for you, what would your dream be?
I think it does have to be a sliding bookcase. I mean, to start with, at least, because I live in the Bay Area, so it is a little house and there's not room for like a secret room or anything. But so I would love to have that, like a little sliding bookcase, that I can activate with a gargoyle on the shelf or one of my favorite books, and then have a little reading nook or something like that. Like my favorite, I think, actually, I shouldn't even say my favorite because I don't even know, because Tempest's family home has so many secret nooks and things because her parents experimented on the house before they would do things elsewhere. They would try things out in their own home that started as a small house, but grew a lot with their own experiments. But I think my favorite spot is that through the faux fireplace, there is a library and reading nook. So, but as I say that though, that I'm picking over other things too. So that is my favorite answer for today. But on a different day, I might pick a different secret room.
Cool. Now I want to get to what the future is, but first, can you tell us a little about Crime Writers of Color and how that came about, and what, talk a little about its mission and how you helped found it?
Yeah. So a few years ago, Kelly Garrett, who's a fantastic mystery writer who also has a novel out this month, Like a Sister, which is a thriller that's fantastic. I was lucky to get an advanced reader's copy of that. So she and I shared a publisher for a previous series that we, when we were writing previous series. And so when we got together, she's amazing. So we immediately became friends, and she brought up the fact that mystery conventions did not seem especially diverse or representative of who we knew was, writing and reading mystery fiction, which was something that much like how the books that I loved as a kid didn't have a lot of diversity, but I just took, for granted that that's just how things are. And so that was something when she vocalized that, I was like, yeah, it would be great to, be able to bring folks together. And she had heard too that Walter Mosley had mentioned that to someone too, that it would be good to do. And I learned also later that Eleanor Taylor Bland who was a mystery author who has since passed away, really brought together Black mystery writers in the 1990s. And so you really need someone who can really bring folks together. And Kelly Garrett is amazing at bringing people together. And so she and I talked at length about, how many people we knew and what would a group like that really, like, how can we bring folks together so we can have a supportive community? Because one of the challenges that people don't think about, if you're in the mainstream culture, is just that it can be alienating if you walk into a space and see there's nobody who looks like you. And so it's just something you deal with and, learn to navigate that. But it's also really great if you have folks that are, that you feel like it's a more welcoming environment. And so we were just talking about how we would bring folks together. And so we just, the three of us came up with the idea to just have a listserv and invite other mystery writers of color who we knew at the time 4 years ago. And so at the time, it was about 30 people who we brought together just for listserv, just to chat and just have a sense of community, and also to be able to say, are you planning on going to this conference? Let's meet up, and so we can, have folks feel comfortable attending things. And then since then, it has grown into this amazingly supportive community that folks can, it's 350 people now, because it's not just published authors, but it's also folks who are aspiring mystery novelists who are, looking for advice and a sense of community. But the coolest thing too is that not only are we able to make plans to meet up at, conferences and, just give each other advice and be able to ask questions of each other, but also the community of volunteers is now 30 plus. So the amount of people that started with the whole group 4 years ago, we now have that many really engaged volunteers who do things like built a website and arrange social media and are conference liaisons and send out a newsletter to librarians and run a podcast. And so it's all volunteer run. It's not like there's dues. So if anyone is watching and you're an author of color who's interested in writing mystery fiction, even if you're not published in it, you can check out the Crime Writers of Color website and just send us a message.
I would say even just everyone, all readers, check it out. There's such fabulous authors represented as part of the website, and access to them, and it's just a great resource. So, we have
thank you, Ellen.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure people know and visit crimewritersofcolor.com. There are two questions, and three questions now. And I also want to, this is your launch day, so it feels kind of crazy to ask you what's next, but what's next?
I can tell you that, because one of the wild things about publishing, which is it takes a long time between when a book is finished and when it gets to be in readers' hands. So I am thrilled that I've turned in book 2 in the mystery series already to my editor. And I also love juggling. I love moving between multiple series because it lets books have breathing room. so that when I can really step back from a draft before I see things that I couldn't see when I was immersed in it, and then also get excited for when I get back to it. And so I also have finished a draft of my next Accidental Alchemist mystery, which I'm very excited about. And so I go back and forth between those. But so there will be Secret Staircase Mystery #2 coming out later, and also another Accidental Alchemist mystery coming out later this year.
That's great. I think what's great about mystery writers is readers is they give us a chance. Like, I think about like how the first book in a series is very much like a TV pilot. Like you don't really know what your series, when you're working in TV, you really don't know right away what your series is because people surprise you and actors relate, there's chemistry you didn't see, or someone is funny in a way you didn't realize. And I think sometimes our series don't really hit their, the first books are always engaging. They're always good, but they don't really hit their stride until, the second book, and then they grow. I think I can speak for myself that I think my series get better as they go on. But which is not to say it's not great fun right now with, Under Lock and Skeleton Key. Any reader will have a blast reading it. Okay, so question number 1. Do you have any particular locked room mysteries you suggest to readers who are new to them? That's a good question.
Oh, yes. Okay, so John Dixon Carr is my absolute favorite, but read reviews and you can find lots of his books are coming back in print, which I'm very excited about. But read descriptions and reviews of them too, because some of them are more accessible than others if you're just starting out. I would say my favorites are the Detective Fell, Dr. Fell novels, because there's so much. Those ones are just really fun, but also have that Gothic atmosphere that I really love. And there are also another big thing I'd recommend is there are so many locked room mystery anthologies of short stories. And the genre of locked room mysteries really lends itself to short stories because it is that puzzle twist of solving the impossibility. And so they're really, really satisfying short stories. And there's so many different anthologies out there. And there's, I could go on and on about this. I actually do have, if you Google my name and locked room mysteries, I've actually published a few articles where I give recommendations on good places to start. So I think that would.
And you may be able to buy some of them from Mysterious Galaxy.
Oh yes, I see that those are popping up. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and that is a good one. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
great.
So,
oh, that looks cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite aspect of writing in the cozy mystery genre?
I love that I know that I can have I love the word cozy because they really do evoke that feeling. And so I know that I'm not going to have a nerve-wracking experience that makes me not sleep or that leaves some really violent image in my head. And so I really do love that you get to have an excellent mystery that's a really compelling plot, but also being able to love spending time with the characters. And so I feel like the characters and really liking them and having believable, fully formed characters, but that are just fun to hang out with is such an element. Like that's just as important as the plot. So I want it all. I want to have really compelling characters who I like hanging out with, and also having a really strong plot. And for me, I love being able to create the style of puzzle plot. And I don't think I'm as rigorous in my plots as some of like the classic mystery authors that even have things like a clue finder in the end, so that it really, have you heard of a clue finder?
No.
So that's when you can point out, like on page 16, this at the end. So after you know the solution, it'll be like, did you see this on page 16? And it'll have a list of all where you could have beaten the detective if you would notice all of these things on these different pages.
I've never seen that.
Yeah. And so it was done. I don't know if anybody's doing it now. I think Martin Edwards, who is, he is another fan of locked room mysteries. But so I think that for his next Golden Age mystery, I think he might have a clue finder in there. It's for the one that's not out yet. I think I've heard this from him. But yeah, so I'm not that hardcore in my clue planting, but I do make sure that I have everything there. So you do get that satisfying aha moment at the end that you can see all the things that were set up.
Yeah. I kind of just kind of walk it out as I'm writing. I don't, it's, sometimes I feel I'm not doing it right. But what sort of research goes into a locked room mystery?
The research, I think, is really reading widely in the genre, because I don't want to I want to both be inspired by ideas, but also never do exactly the same thing as somebody else. And so there's never a way to do something that's like completely unique, even though a couple of lecture mystery fans have suggested that my short story, The Haunted Room, actually does have a unique locked room mystery solution, which I think is fun. So, but most of the time it's like something somewhat similar to what other stories have done, but your own unique twist on it. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything that anyone else has done, but I'm so immersed in reading those puzzles and being fooled and then satisfied at the end when they present a good solution, that just gets your mind spinning. And again, since I work on paper notebooks, I can just jot down ideas that might work out. And one last thing I'll say on this is that if you are interested in trying to write a locked room mystery, one thing that I think is a really great exercise is to challenge yourself. Think of a setting that you think is a really cool, impossible crime. Don't even think about how you're going to solve it first. But like if you want to have maybe that there is this, there's a cliff and there's some sand and there's no water. So you know that if anybody walks up it, you'll see it in the sand, but there's a really cool spot up that cliff where something happens up there, but there's no way for anybody to have reached it. Just some setting and some setup that you think sounds really cool and impossible. And then just set that aside and then come back to that later to try to solve it yourself. So just like think of because if you really like the setup that you've created and is a mystery to you, then you can start poking holes in it and think how you would want to solve it.
Oh, super cool. Let's see. Were there any scenes you really wanted to make it into the final draft that were, but were ultimately cut?
So not from this version of the book, but from the thriller, it was really interesting. Lots of the abandoned thriller version of the book, there were lots of scenes that were just so fantastic that I loved, but they just weren't written right. So I did pull out so many of those scenes and just rewrote them. But there are even more that are still in that thriller that I am saving in another folder because I really like so many of the ideas from there. I just didn't write them in a way that felt right. It was just, I was trying to force a different voice on there that wasn't my voice.
Well, you're talking, I have to go back to what you said about the keeping notebooks. When do you translate, like, do you type up stuff? Do you, like, I would know where to look for something in a notebook. I do it all online now.
Yeah, that is the one challenge of a notebook, is that there is no like find to find something. But because I'm such a visual person, I can have things like written in different ways that I kind of like can like just like go through the pages and I'm able to remember what, kind of where it was. I also use lots of Post-it notes when I'm in the writing process. Like if I'm like, oh, this is like a great scene of dialogue of Tempest and Sanjay, then I'll like do that. Or if there's a page that I've figured out a certain plotting thing on, I'll like, lots of it is like working out things that don't work that I'm just like are never going to get typed up, but they're just me working out the story. See, I got so excited I hit my computer. So it's just me working out the story. But yes, that is a danger that I occasionally lose things. But that happens on a computer too if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I've become a big fan of Find. Let's see, what can you tell us about that interesting cover? Yes, how much input did you have into the cover?
Oh, yeah. So it's an absolutely gorgeous cover. And I was shown a draft of it and it was like very close to what it ended up being. But it was just so gorgeous from the beginning. I'll say the one tiny tweak that my agent and I requested was this & sign. In the first version, it was even, because I don't know if you can see that like the the font has these little bones and the skull and bones things, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But so the and sign in the first version was even more bones as opposed to being a proper and sign with this little skull. And so it wasn't really legible as an and sign. So it was super artistic and cool, but it wasn't quite clear enough that you could read it as a title. And so we just requested to make it slightly more clear, which they did, but it was already really gorgeous. I'm really lucky.
Were there any other, did they ask you for ideas? Because I know I actually give a lot of ideas for my covers.
Yeah, so I did give ideas for covers. And so I gathered together book covers that I thought were really stunning, but I never even imagined something so cool as this, and how it really like evokes the spirit of the book.
Yes.
So it was just really cool. And it also wraps around to the back as well.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have to.
So,
oh, yeah. Very cool. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, because you don't have this back cover because you have an advanced reader's copy.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. That's very cool. So the last for Gigi and Ellen, is there anything you've read or reading currently that you'd recommend? Well, I'd recommend Under Lock and Skeleton Key, because that's what I've read recently. And you know, I've been reading so much that I can't remember what I read last. I'm reading right now, my friend Libby Klein, I'm reading one of her books, and they're always funny and make me laugh. And they're, you know, I'm really sticking to light stuff because it's very hard to function. And you know, so I need something. Yeah, I can't be weighed down by my reading.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm also reading something on the cozier side, Naomi Hirahara's An Eternal Lay. I'm reading right now, and I think that is out next week. I have an advanced copy of that one. This is a writer's book.
Is this from her cozy series, the Hawaii series?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm reading that, and circling back to Locked Room Mysteries, I recently read James Scott Burnside is an author who, a contemporary author who writes Locked Room Mysteries, and he's very rigorous with his plots. So The Five False Suicides is his most recent novel. They're not cozies at all, but I love his, like, he's so good at these puzzles. And so that book was a lot of fun. And then I have queued up to read next. I don't know why I say queued up, because it's a paper book. Deanna Rayburn's An Impossible Imposter in the Veronica Speedwell series, which is fantastic. I'm looking forward. That came out last month, and I have that on my bedside to read.
Very cool.
I've done with Naomi's terrific book.
Oh yeah. So okay. So I'm going to ask you one last question. Oh, there's another question.
Oh wait. Okay. While you regroup on questions, I have a question for you, because I want to get this in before we wrap up. Tell us about your new vintage cookbook mystery series that's coming, which I'm so excited for. I want to know more.
Okay. Well, here is the cover of the book. It's Bayou Book Thief, which is, you can't see. And it's inspired by my real hobby of collecting old cookbooks. I'm kind of fascinated with. I don't use them all, although now my book includes recipes. I adapt recipes from some of these old cookbooks to include with the book. And my protagonist is a young woman who's widowed at 28 because her husband, it was a very shaky marriage, and he was aspiring. She lived in Los Angeles. She was born in New Orleans and abandoned as a baby. And she was adopted by her NICU nurse, who ended up marrying a grip who was in town working on a movie. And then they moved back when she was about 8. They moved to Los Angeles, where she grew up until now. And she was impulsively married to an actor who was frustrated and not famous. So he began to do YouTube stunts. This is all backstory. And he died doing YouTube stunt. So she's now decided to change her life. And she is also working for, I'm obsessed with Bernie Madoff. And I read everything I can. I've watched everything I can. It's just, there's something about it. I remember when it happened, the day after it happened, I was at school and my daughter was in a school play. She was 8, and a parent came in and she looked terrible. I said, "What happened?" She goes, my parents just lost everything. And it was before it had broken on the news, and it was like, what's going on? So I've just kind of been obsessed with that. So this woman, my protagonist, Ricky, she worked for a billionaire who got slammed for Ponzi. So she's starting her life over, and she's starts this book, the gift shop at a culinary house museum in New Orleans in the Garden District, where she sells vintage cookbooks and kitchenware. And one of the vintage, a 1930s can opener is what is the first murder weapon. So, and it kind of combines my fascination, my love New Orleans, and my fascination with old cookbooks. And so there you go. I hope I haven't bored people to death describing it.
I'm excited for the new series.
Thank you. It's really fun to write. And I just turned to the second one too. So, I mean,
yeah.
wine and died in New Orleans. And what's really fun is I decided there should be peacocks, you know, and so now peacocks are great for the cover, but they're like shitty. They're kind of shitty. That's not nice to say. They're like nasty animals. So there are dogs appear at the end. So there are some lovable animals as well as these kind of arrogant peacocks that keep chasing people they don't like and squawking at them. So it's fun. Gigi, this has been, thank you so much for that, but are there last words you want to leave readers with and are wonderful? Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to Mysterious Galaxy. They'll be back in a minute to take us home, but is there anything you want to leave us with?
Any last words? I mean, I am just so excited that like after so many years of trying to figure out how to tell this book, that it really came together, and I'm just so excited that I got to stay true to my Gothic cozy voice and doing locked room mysteries, and now there seems to be an interest in that. So I hope people will have fun with Tempest and her friends and family following along on their cozy adventures solving seemingly impossible crimes.
Yay! Thank you so much. I love you. You're the best. And
I love
I read everything you write, and it's just a sheer pleasure.
Yes, and thank you again to Mysterious Galaxy for hosting tonight.
Oh no, thank you so much, Gigi, and thank you, Ellen, for being such a great conversation partner. For everyone out there who's tuning in, thank you for being here. And don't forget, if you haven't yet gotten Gigi's book or any of the books that were mentioned, it does support the store and continuing for us to do what we do and bring such wonderful authors and events to you like this.
And it's a great store. If you're ever in San Diego, you must factor in a visit to the store to your trip. It's really fabulous.
Especially with the San Diego book crawl happening next month. We are one of the stops of 11 stores. Ooh. So if you haven't, if you are all finding out for the first time about this, you can find us on Instagram for that posting. It's going to be on Independent Bookstore Weekend, starting April the 30th, I believe, and it'll be 3 days and wonderful 11 bookstores, and we're one of them.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great.
All right. I'm going to bid you a good night, Gigi, and you a good night, Ellen, and as well as everyone out there. And hopefully we'll have you again, either virtually or in person.
Yes. And everyone, buy your books from Mysterious Galaxy.
All right, everyone. Have a great night. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much.